everyone, and welcome to the Sports Countdown podcast with Declan Hughes and me, Peter Lynch. As always, just a quick shout out to Freelance Football Ops. They're really busy on LinkedIn and Twitter, helping people find football media jobs in this tough time. So shout out to them. This week, we are delighted to be joined by freelance journalist Renuka Odedra to discuss her journalism journey so far and her beloved Chelsea Football Club. So Renuka, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Just kind of reading online a lot about you, your website, BBC Kickoff alumni, trainee sports reporter at BBC Radio Derby, bylines at Eurosport, Metro. The list goes on, but, perhaps it's maybe best for you to give us a little bit about yourself, a little introduction.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2019 with journalism and media and comms degree, but it kind of really started for me way before then. So I was at another university and I dropped out. I hate the course and I thought I'm not going to do this for 3 years. It's just going to kill me. So I came back home and I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And one of my joys was writing. I really loved writing. And another joy was football. So I thought, okay, let me combine the two. And the kind of goal was to get as much experience in that gap year as possible, because it kind of ended up being a gap year for me. So I found this internship, BBC Kickoff, and I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. I wonder what it's about. I kind of read upon it, applied for it, and I did not think I would get it. I just thought there's way too much competition here. I went to the interview stages and I thought, okay, this sounds really fun. I really wish I get it. I got it. And it was so much fun because it was the year of the Olympics. And everyone in the newsroom was busy with other things. And they just kind of went, okay. So I was at BBC Radio Derby and they just kind of pushed me out the door and went, okay, you go and do your thing. You go and find stories, interview people, do your thing. And I can remember the first thing I did, it was Sam Allardyce was the incoming New England manager. Spoiler alert. And so I was doing Vox Pops. I was kind of just pulling people, like, hey, can you talk to me about this? What do you think about him coming in as England manager? And it was really fun because I can remember a memory from that is a guy was wearing a Team GB shirt and he was just kind of running across the street towards me. And I was like, okay. And I just stopped him and I went, hey, are you like part of the Olympics anyway, anything? And he was actually a reserve triathlete, and so it was just really fun, just kind of immersing myself in this world. And so after that finished, I did that for 2 months. I contacted my local hospital radio station because I love talking as well, as you can probably tell. And so I love radio. It was a medium I'd always tried to get in. I didn't know how to get in. I thought, well, radio is gonna, how do I get into this further than what I'd done with Radio Derby? So I went in at a hospital radio station. I kind of observed them doing their Monday morning sports shows, their kind of news kind of bulletins and things like that. And the following season, it was the season after Leicester won the Premier League. They went, okay, we're kind of a sports reporter short. Do you want to go down to King Power and, do some reporting? And then I was like, are you sure? Don't ask me twice because I'm going to say yeah. So it's really fun and it kind of kicked off from there. So I've been doing that for kind of until now, really. And it's been so much fun. And just really, I've been just kind of, whilst I was in university, I've been gathering experiences. So I've been at newspapers, radio stations. I've been at Copper90, which is kind of doing their own thing with social media. So I've kind of seen all sorts of kind of national stuff, local stuff, kind of social media, kind of like Copper90. I don't even know what they class like online platform. But yeah, it's been really fun just to kind of see stuff, learn new things, and just go on this journey.
Amazing.
Awesome. So Renuka, you mentioned about the reporting covering the Leicester home matches. So like, what's the difference been in covering these games prior to, and then obviously now kind of during COVID? Is there some, I'd assume there's been some major like differences?
So I actually, we don't actually do the games because of COVID. So I stopped doing the games. I went to India last February, so I actually stopped doing the games before the lockdown. And when I came back, it was just like a no-go zone. So we're a hospital radio station. These guys, you know, the BBC, national newspapers, they need their space. And so it was kind of like, I think we were lucky to be there in the first place. There are not many places. First of all, there are not that many hospital radio stations around the country. And there are not that many football clubs who would let them in, let alone Premier League clubs. So we were just fortunate to be there and kind of do our thing. But I know with COVID, it's so difficult. I think that, you know, even kind of normal sports reporters, you know, beyond kind of my level of experience and more experience, it's kind of everyone who just has to be there, you know, and needs to be there. You're the only ones allowed. So it's really difficult at the minute. But, you know, yeah, it's tough out there. I mean, just kind of speaking to radio presenters, commentators, it's really, really difficult for them at the minute. I know that.
So, what's your thoughts then, being on Brendan Rodgers since he came in? I guess you've been covering since he left Celtic, which I don't want to talk about since that's my club. So, get still a little bit bitter about that. But
okay, well, I mentioned Rangers winning then.
No, don't talk about that either. No, that's now banned. That's banned on this podcast from now on. But we knew Brendan Rodgers was a really top class manager. He came so close at Liverpool, and then he came up to Celtic and won everything really. So he went to Leicester. Kind of again, it was a little bit of a transition, so a little bit of a struggle that half, or when he came in like March. But then he's really turned it around now, and you can see that they're a top 4 team in the Premier League. Even I think in a couple of years they'll be competing for the title. I think if they keep him there and keep that core of players. But I just wondering what's the view on him in Leicester, and then maybe what's your view on Brendan Rodgers and what he's achieved so far?
I think if you want to kind of think about this topic, you first got to think about Claude Puel, because when Claude Puel was in charge, you could just feel it, especially towards the end of his kind of time at Leicester City before he was sacked. You know, people weren't happy, fans weren't happy, and you could feel the players' kind of mood dampening, especially at the back of Leicester City winning the Premier League. And so, you know, towards the end, it just, you know, the results weren't there. You know, you were kind of watching Leicester City lose their grip on becoming a top side, because that's what they wanted at, you know, the back of winning the Premier League. So to see them lose the grip on kind of tumbling, you know, towards the bottom end of the league table, it wasn't good. That's not what the club wanted. And he wasn't playing the type of football that I think Leicester, you know, played in their league winning season. And so the mood was down for sure. And it's true, when you're at Claude Puel press conference, you really have to listen closely, because that man speaks so softly. But yeah, it was just and you know, I think it's coming. It was always coming. You know, and there were talks of, you know, Leicester looking at another manager. So when Brendan came in, I can remember his first home game against Fulham, and Vardy scored his 100th Premier League goal that day. You know, you could see it was a huge win. I know Fulham were kind of struggling in the Premier League at the time. You know, you could see the type of football he wanted to play, and kind of what he was kind of seeing, kind of for the vision for the future. And his second season, you know, Leicester finished 5th. They won the Europa League. So we were now starting to see Leicester really kind of go with their plan, which was to become, you know, a top 4 side, or get European football at the least every season. And, you know, just look at this season. They won, you know, against Manchester City, you know, at the beginning of the season. They won against Manchester United recently. So, you know, at the back of all these injuries at Leicester City, you know, they've got some major players missing. You know, James Maddison. You know, Justin was just he came to the side. He was just beginning to kind of make his mark in the team. And then, you know, another thing is Brendan Rodgers. He has really good team management skills. So he's kind of brought in, you know, Kelechi Iheanacho. He's giving players the opportunity to make their mark on the side. And Kelechi Iheanacho, I know he wasn't getting as much game time as he could. You see what he's done. You know, Leicester possibly found a striker, you know, right under their noses, you know, a replacement for Vardy for the future. And I know that's where they were struggling. You know, they brought in the likes of Slimani, etc. Wasn't really working. So, you know, I think Brendan Rodgers has done great. since he's coming. He's really starting to forge this side and make it his own, and go with the club's vision as well, which is, I think Leicester really don't get the respect they do in some sense as well. Whether it's by opponents or the media, because they've consistently stayed in that top half of the table and really churned out these performances and results against the odds, like I say, with these injuries. And so Rodgers has definitely been a big part of that, and he's he's a big kind of personality on the touchline as well. And that's something that Ranieri had. You'd see him kind of shouting at players, and I think that's important as well. As a manager, you want that. You want a presence in the dressing room, but on the touchline as well. So, I think he's been great, and what he's doing at Leicester. And I'm sure the summer will be interesting as well, to bring in some, kind of new life into the team and see what decisions he makes, the players he wants. So, yeah, I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah. Johnny Evans out, Pete, right? He's getting on a little bit.
Nah, I mean, a really exciting team, but I think Johnny will be there for a while, surely. They've got so many players like that.
See that, like, Renuka, you mentioned, like, Claude Puel, like, spoke really softly. Maybe obviously, like, being French, he was probably still kind of learning the language, but
right.
What's the difference between that and then Brendan Rodgers? Because I know, listening to his press conferences when he was at Celtic, like, I could have just sat and listened to him all day. He just comes across that way, that he really knows what he's talking about. It's kind of
right,
smooth, like he's leading you, like he's dictating the press conference, I think, rather than like he's feeling under pressure from the press. So do you kind of see that when he was speaking to you?
I think when you're part of the media, all you want is honesty. You just want an answer to the question, because there's so many managers who just go around the question and just don't even answer it, just kind of just say words, and it's like, what, did you even answer the question? I can remember this Jose Mourinho press conference. It was around Christmas time, and they lost against Leicester, and I can remember him just leaving it and he go, "Merry Christmas," really kind of like bitter fashion. Some managers, they just don't answer the question. And with Brendan, I feel like he's honest. If you ask a question, he'll answer it, and then some. He'll be honest. With Claude, I had to stay like right at the kind of. So like, I didn't think the microphone was doing any justice, really. I don't know if that thing was off or what, but you just couldn't hear him. But Brendan, I think he's just you could tell there's a respect there. There's a respect there for the media, and he just wants to come across, be honest.
Before I stop talking, I would just like to say, Brendan Rodgers and honesty don't go together at Celtic. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's the perfect place to stop talking about Brendan Rodgers for a while, definitely, before we go overboard. And he's a good Northern Ireland man like me, so I have to defend him here. But yeah, I think it's perfect to just go back maybe off the pitch, back to your career maybe. So you were recently involved in a podcast on International Women's Day, that was run with Kick It Out and the National Football Museum on the underrepresentation of women in football. It was really interesting to hear all these stories from, women in the media and in football especially, and hearing the barriers that they face. I think you mentioned that, press boxes that you've been to have been like 99.9% dominated by, by males, a male presence, almost 100%, almost all up and down the country. So obviously not great, but, being a freelance journalist for a couple of years, I can confirm that, which is not a great thing to say. But even in newsrooms I've been in, it's almost very similar, which is unfortunate. And we talked about how difficult it is to be a freelance journalist. It's dog eat dog out there, every man or woman for himself, herself. So you don't need, that added barrier, that added pressure. So, and it's a lonely job as well at times. So just, can you even say how difficult, it's been over the years, especially now with COVID? Obviously, you're not getting as many opportunities as you were, but, I guess it's been a difficult journey. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge topic. I think you can approach it in so many ways. And if you guys have any questions, I know it's nice to kind of, have like male allies asking questions. It's a huge thing. First of all, there's a hiring problem right at the root of it. There just aren't opportunities given. And I think when we talk about women who want to get into the industry is, you know, just being afforded the opportunity to come in and show what you can do. That's at the root of it. Just, you know, it's a hiring issue. And I hear this all the time, you know, there are not many women applying. Well, let me tell you, the women are applying. I promise you they are. It's just being afforded the chance to come in and go, okay, you've got a week, you've got a month, whatever it is, come in and show what you can do. That's at the start of it, because then I can come in and I know XYZ, I know the editor of, you know, this organization, etc. Because you know, it is such a cliche, and I hate this cliche so much, but it's, you know, who you know, which is I think that needs to change too, because it shouldn't be about who you know. It shouldn't be, you know, this editor or, you know, this individual in the industry. It should be, okay, on paper you're an amazing candidate, let's bring you in so you can do the job. And then at the back of that, it's the experiences once you're in as well. So many experiences. God, you know, I can speak as a South Asian woman in this industry. You know, there's sexism, then there's the racism. I feel like just being a South Asian woman, it's a double-edged sword. You know, if it's not one, it's the other. But you know, it's just there are so many stories I have. You know, let me tell one just as an example. I was at BBC Radio Derby, and I was you know, scheduled to interview the CEO of this cricket club. I was doing a package on the women's cricket club, which women's cricket World Cup, which was happening in 2017. Huge. There were so many venues in England hosting, you know, matches. This was amazing for women's cricket as well. And so I went to speak to the CEO of this specific cricket club. It won't take long to find out which cricket club. I'm not even sure if he's the CEO there still, but I went in and I was just expecting to interview him, but he brought along two other coaches at women's cricket coaches. And I thought, great, okay, I didn't expect that, but I'll speak to you two. And, you know, just immediately walking into that room, he was about a meter away from me. And he was slouching in his kind of chair, and I was kind of reaching out my mic towards him. It was pretty uncomfortable just to kind of do that and be like, oh, I'm trying to get your voice on camera, voice on you know, the microphone clearly. But I can remember he wasn't happy with the questions, one of the questions, and I was just kind of going, well, you didn't answer that question. It was kind of a PR thing, you know. He was just trying to say nice things, and I was trying to go, well, you know, you're not really supporting your women's cricket side here. You love to talk about all the PR things, but not about supporting, you know, the local cricket team. And he just kind of was like, let's show me your badge. It took down my name. I'm going to phone, you know, the editor at the radio station. It was just an uncomfortable experience. And when I went back, the sports editor at the radio station went, if this was a man, this just wouldn't have happened. And that made me so angry, because I thought, you know, like the fact that you're just telling me that, like, and there are so many experiences. I probably speak about them, you know, and there's the part where, you know, I don't know if you read Melissa Reddy's piece, The Independent, amazing, powerful piece about, you know, how as women in football, you're just expected to do the job, you know, and kind of brush all the bad things under the carpet. And there, you know, there are times when I've done that too, and I've gone, oh yeah, well, it's just part of the job, but it is just such bad practice to think about it like that. And things need to change. Yeah, like I said, there's so many kind of multifaceted parts of this topic, you know, there's the hiring issue, there's the experiences, so much.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's difficult to hear about, definitely. I know we could talk about it all day. There's so much to, you know, to get your teeth stuck into, but you know, hopefully things improve in the near future. And you know, you mentioned some of the ways we can, you know, get about improving the issue. So you know, fingers crossed, people can start getting their act together in this industry. So yeah, we hope so. But yeah, I think enough about you've talked all about that for so long, I'm sure. And that last podcast we mentioned, you know, you nailed it. So we'll just give you a break on that front. And we'll go back onto the pitch. Sure, we'll go back on to talking about football. Chelsea Football Club. I think you mentioned you're a fan of the club, but there's a story behind that one, isn't there?
There is, yeah, and I'm so glad. I can remember you texting me and going, "Oh, you're a Leicester City fan," because I can. Oh, the amount of people that go, "Oh, you're a Leicester fan. You're gonna write about this." I go, "Okay, just because I'm from Leicester." But yeah, no, I mean, on the back of them winning the Premier League, I couldn't have been prouder. This was my home city. Nobody really knew Leicester like that. So to have a football club come and mark Leicester on the map was huge. And I don't support Leicester, and the reason I don't support Leicester is I never really kind of grew up with parents who supported a specific football team. As a first generation immigrant, my parents are from India. They came here in the 80s. I didn't have anybody to take me to games, and so it was all TV based. It was what you watched on the TV. It was Match of the Day, etc., broadcasted games, and it was kind of me and my brother. My brother would watch Match of the Day, and I'd be like, okay, football's on, great. Don't know much about it, but let's watch it. And he's a big Manchester United supporter, and I didn't really decide who I supported at this time. And I'm actually doing a project on this at the minute. I'm writing a chapter submission, which is a women's football writing anthology by Floodlit Dreams, trying to get more women published on why I support Chelsea, and there's a little bit more about it. So hey, if they publish it, you heard it here first. But yeah. So I'm a big bookworm, so I picked up this book at the library, and it's cool to actually have it here with me because I've been doing research on it for this chapter.
Nice.
And the star of this book is Gianfranco Zola, so naturally I went to my brother and I went, who is this guy? And he was just at the tail end of his career when I asked him this question, so I don't really get him to see him play much. But and this was at the time when Chelsea were pumping money into the club and really forging into this superpower, and they were forging a rivalry with Manchester United and competing right at the top. And so just cheekily, I think a little bit to annoy my siblings and everybody support Manchester United around me, my cousins, everybody. I mean, everybody supports Manchester United up here. So I went, you know what, I'm going to support Chelsea. And that's kind of the story behind it, and I kind of go more into it in this chapter and talk about it, because I don't know if Peter, if you support your local side, or Declan, you support your local side, but I think for many of us, I could just speak about my experience, but I never went to football games, never had that, so I describe it as I didn't have a baton to pick up and run with like you do in athletics, so I kind of chose my own.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Very admirable. I'm from Derry, Northern Ireland. There's a team there, obviously Derry City. Shout out to them. But I'm actually a Liverpool fan, and that's simply because my dad was a Liverpool fan, and sadly there's no story to that. But I was just mainly watching them on TV because obviously it wasn't easy to go to games. You'd have to get a boat or a plane to go over. So, but I still watch my local teams, absolutely. But it's obviously not watching.
It is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm still a fan. Definitely, I go with my mates. Whenever we could when we were growing up. But I mean, it's nothing compared to Anfield. I'm sorry to say, to the Brandywell, Derry City, but we'll move on.
I'll just shout out Greenock Morton then while we're giving shout outs to our local team, Moniton. Let's hope we don't get relegated this season from a championship. Best of luck, guys. We just hired a new manager, so let's see what we can do. Nice. But anyway, back to Chelsea. So Tuchel's came in. I think that was a little bit of a surprise. He's kind of, I think a lot of people think he's overrated. I think just because he didn't really do it at Dortmund. They went to PSG. It didn't really work out. So, but I mean, he's came in 2 months without a loss, which is obviously really impressive. So, what's your thoughts been on the impact that he's made, and were you surprised by how well Chelsea are playing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I was the same as you. I kind of was like, really, Thomas Tuchel, really, we're gonna bring in that guy? And with Chelsea, it's a merry-go-round of managers anyway. So it's like a pick and mix. You're gonna get one or the other. You're gonna get whoever's free, this year or another. And so, I was a bit skeptical like you, but then again, I was honestly a bit skeptical of Frank Lampard coming in. I thought, okay, we all love him. He's a club legend, but really, does he have the credentials to do the job? I think that's something lost in the game, honestly. I mean, you can argue with Gerrard, Steven Gerrard, sorry, Declan, what he's done. So I mean, you can't really fault him with his record so far. 14 games unbeaten. And I think one of the things I noticed is that we had a huge defensive problem for one reason or another. And he's, buttoned that up. I think we've only conceded like a couple of goals in the game since he's been in charge. So immediately that's like, okay. But I think we still have a problem up front. Ever since Didier Drogba left the club, I think Diego Costa is the only one I would say who's kind of been prolific up front and really made an impact. And even then, since he's left, we've not had someone who can, play up front and really produce in front of goal. And I think that's Thomas Tuchel. I really hope he stays at the club and tries to kind of figure these issues out and kind of, sorts this issue out. And it's always a thing with Chelsea. It's like, someone else going to come in, he's going to get fired in a couple of years. But I think he's been great. You can't really fault him. I think the only thing I fear is, like, are some players going to be favoured than others? Christian Pulisic has been talking a little bit about it. He's talked a little bit about it on international duty, I think, with the USA. Of course, he played under Tuchel at Dortmund, and Tammy Abraham as well. I know he's kind of battling this injury as well. Under Frank Lampard, he was kind of the guy getting the goals. He's a little bit out of favour, you could say, as well. But, I'm sure players like, Werner, Rudiger, and Havertz are going to be great under him, just a German connection. But another thing about Tuchel as well, which I think Frank didn't have, is that presence on the touchline and that connection with the players. You can tell Tuchel has that kind of harmony going off the pitch in the dressing room, and he's talking to players. You can see that on the touchline as well, and that's so important in football. I think when you have a silent manager, that can say a lot. It really can say a lot, and you can tell when there's that disconnect. But because you want to be talked to as an individual, if you go into a job, any job, you want to be talked to, and you want to know what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. Just be treated as a normal individual. And so I think it's too early to tell, but honestly, I think what's going on so far is so far so good.
Yeah, absolutely. You've nailed it there again. I mean, it's such a great insight, but for me as a Liverpool fan, it's unbearable almost, because I just can't stand Chelsea winning. Almost more than any other club. Obviously Man City and Man United, but I think after that, well, of course there's Everton as well, but I mean Chelsea for some reason just...
What happened to Liverpool? What happened?
Just Tuchel's the new German in town. I think he's just taken over Klopp, and now he's the main man. So hopefully for your sake it continues, but for our sake for my sake anyway, it stops soon. But they're looking really, really good. So moving on as quick as possible from Chelsea, apologies, but here on our podcast we like to present our guests with the top 3 countdown. Obviously you've had it's been a brief career, but it's really busy so far, so it's going to be a difficult answer, but we love to hear your top 3 interviewees.
When I was thinking about this question, I was thinking, honestly, I've not even interviewed like big names. Honestly, like, I feel like big names have been spoken to before, and they're going to tell the same stories in one way or another. Yeah. And so my top 3 are just people who haven't been spoken to before, who have a good story to tell. And so one of them, I have to say, I don't know if we're going to mark them, rank them from the 1 to 3, but this is, the top 3. So one of them is Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, who was the first Indian to play in the Europa League. He was the first Indian footballer to play in Europe, in Norway, with a team called Stabæk. So that's huge. That was a huge story back then. And I can remember just thinking, why is this not covered? So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I want to tell you a story. And honestly, just his insight, just going from this small city in India, traveling far away in Europe where he didn't know anyone, where he didn't know about the culture, the food was different. We just talked about everything. And it was just really interesting. And, that's huge. That's huge for, Southeast Asia players to come in and make that sort of impact and be that first person to break those barriers. So, I did that story for Glory magazine, and that was great. The second one is my first ever broadcast interview was with a Derbyshire cricket player called Callum Parkinson. And I just remember it because he came down from the balcony and I was bricking it because it was my first broadcast interview and it was his first time being interviewed. So he was really nervous and I was really nervous, and I just went, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. And I was like, because I don't know what I'm doing and it's your first interview. So it ended up being a good interview, and it was just nice because he was around my age and we were just like, shit. Sorry. Yeah, it was, yeah, I just remember that interview, and it was just, it was a nice summer's day for cricket, so that was one of the good ones. And my third one, I have to say, was a member of the grassroots organisation On the Ball. They're Scottish. I think they're all Celtic supporters as well, Declan.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, you got comrades. And so their grassroots organisation is about tackling period poverty inside football stadiums. And I can remember the campaign about period poverty and supporting young women around this issue was huge at the time, and it still is an issue we need to focus on. But I know there's a bill in Scotland that's passed where organisations have to provide sanitary products for those who need it, and they were just great women to speak to because they were doing something which we hadn't thought about in football. And I think the space, another issue we fail to kind of talk about much, is about women in football and the space stadiums are for them. And I have been in that space where there's women's toilets, men's toilets, just kind of how we feel as women going to a football stadium and feeling safe to just be women. So that was huge, and just speaking to them, it was what they were doing was amazing, and just speaking to them was really, really nice.
Awesome. Renuka, thank you for your input today. It's been a pleasure having you on, and I'm glad that you were the one that broke the swear duck on our podcast, because
oh my god, have I? Oh no.
I think if anybody was going to do it, everybody would have said it would have been me. So I'm kind of happy that that didn't happen. But no, it's really a pleasure speaking to you today. You highlighted some great points, and then obviously we had a little bit of fun with the football. But thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can have you on again sometime.
Oh, it'll be fun. Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. It's been really, really fun. And am I your first female guest as well? Am I breaking records today?
Record breaker.
Absolutely.
I know. Damn. That's one for the books. Okay, great. Thank you so much, guys. It's been really nice talking to you.
No problem. Peter, it's nice to speak to you as always, my man.
As always, pleasure.
Love it. So again, guys, thank you for listening to everybody, and make sure that you follow us on all our social media stuff. It's been, again, we've been just overwhelmed by everything from the support that we've had. So just keep following, keep listening, and we'll see you all next week.